Hi everyone, I'm Toluca from Markers and Minions, and this is my Facebook group. Welcome to all my new members who I've approved today. I approved about 300 new members today, so welcome. When you get approved, be sure to check out that pinned post and read the group guidelines and acknowledge. And then a really great place to start is by clicking on the Videos tab and the Photos tab and the Files tab on the left-hand column of this group. You'll find a lot of cool resources there. So normally this week I'd be doing a Plan With Me video, but I took a poll yesterday and it seems that most of us are still like in the Unit 2, Unit 3 area, and we've already planned those together, so I don't want to move ahead to Unit 4 yet, especially because I'm not ready to start Unit 4 yet. I'm still on Unit 3, Week 3, and then I'm going to be extending this at least another week after that too. So instead of a Plan With Me, I decided to basically walk you guys through the TRS and go over all the components because of a post that my dear friend Lisa posted, I don't know, today or yesterday, about how she's still confused about the TRS and where to find things and what it all means. So I figured I'd walk you guys through it, and knowing me, I'm a GLAD teacher, so I teach with charts. So I've got it all ready behind me. And then this is probably, I imagine, similar to what you learned in your training. I'm assuming they walked you through this. So I will try my best to just kind of walk you through it, and I show you how I use it, because I might not use it the way that it's completely intended to be used, but I will show you. Oops, hold on, I stepped on my plug. I have a cord right under me, so hopefully I don't eat it during this video. So anyway, I'll show you the way that I use the TRS, and then you can make your own decisions based on how you feel comfortable. And then also you can come back to this throughout the year to refresh your memory. Yay, wear your shirt, Brianna. To refresh your memory on the components, because it's so extensive. Okay, so let's start. First of all, it's called the Teacher's Resource System, or for short, TRS. Notice how it doesn't say Teacher's Guide or Teacher's Manual. It's a system for us to go and gather resources. So before I begin, disclaimer, we teach the standards. So familiarize with your state standards and your grade level standards, and then use this as a resource. And if you can't follow it to the T and get through all the pieces, don't worry, because you're teaching the standards. So just remind yourself of that. Hi, Erin. Okay, now first things first. When you prep or plan, a lot of you will probably know this already just from my Plan With Me videos, but there are some components in the beginning of your TRS that are going to help you. So the first thing is you are able to find the assessed skills by week. Those are indicated with a check mark. So if you open up your TRS, you're going to go to your Units tab, and then you're going to see something like this, the skills and strategies for making meaning, broken down by week. And the ones that have a check mark are the ones that are going to show up, the skills that are going to show up on the weekly test. So these are the skills you're going to want to make sure that you hit if you are planning on using these assessments to gauge progress. One other thing before I dive into this is there's a difference between the K1-2 system and the 3-6 system. And similar to other publishers, I think it just has to do with the layout of the week. So the way that 3-6 is broken down is by week. We have about 15 lessons a week. And then kinder and through 2, you're going to see something like this, more of like a day 1 through 5 view. And you have a lot more than 15 lessons. So, because you have a lot of like letter recognition and a lot more phonics. So that's the big difference. Okay, now getting back to this. The other thing you're going to want to look at when you are starting to prep for your unit is the unit at a glance page. That looks like this. So here we are. Your unit at a glance is going to be this fold out. This shows you basically all of the text that you're going to be using for your unit, whole class and whole group and small group, what you'll be using for your reading and writing mini lessons, and then what you'll be using for your word study lessons, and then down here is ELD. Here are the small group texts. It just kind of shows the titles. It doesn't have the levels there. And then, of course, it has your topic and your essential question. So that's helpful also. Oh, and for your whole group and word study text, it'll include Lexile level and the genre. Okay. The other thing that I like to look at is the guide to text complexity. That is, where? Here it is. Okay, so here we are. We were on this page. 3rd grade and up, you'll see a breakdown like this. I don't think you will see this in K2. Pacing guide. Here's the guide to text complexity. This is a page that I used to skip over last year. I never really looked at it, but it's pretty helpful to know the Lexile levels of what you're reading in class in your text for close reading. And then also it'll tell you a little bit about the structure of the text and then anything that might be challenging. So for example, in the short read for Unit 3, Week 1, Animal Disguises, it says, sentences are mostly simple and domain-specific vocabulary, camouflage, is explained through context. But then down here for week 1, Animal Tools for Survival, it'll say domain-specific vocabulary adaptation is explained through context, but a few words like locomotion and traction are not. So this is a good place to kind of preview what might be challenging for your kids. All right. So Jenny, I don't have the K through 2 TRS because I teach 3rd grade. I taught 2nd grade a 2-3 combo last year, so I had that TRS, but it's kind of hard to just remember what it was like. But I think the main thing was the weekly layout. The way that the lessons were laid out looked a little bit different. And the younger grades have more lessons than the upper grades from what I understand. Hi, Vicki. Hi, Rachel. Okay. Let's see. Let's go over to structure on this side. So the structure there, it's broken down. I've broken it down for you into pieces to help you understand this better. So for the entire program, the structure is broken down. It has the text by grade level, and I'll show you this. It has the topic and the essential question. And that's here, the very beginning of your TRS. You can look to see every single topic, every grade, and the titles. So for K1, it's going to show the title for your big books that you'll be using, and then 2 through 6 are text for close reading titles. And then if you open it up, it breaks it down even more by essential question. So I personally love that we're all kind of doing the same thing at every grade level. You can do a lot of fun school projects that way. Next, the unit structure. The units are broken down into 3 weeks. The first week is a lot of teacher modeling. I do. The second week, we do. And the third week, ideally, is you do. So it's that gradual release model between the weeks. And I'll show you something that goes with that in a moment when we talk about assessments. Now, week. Like I said, for grades 3 through 6, it's going to be around 15 lessons. If you look online, you can print out your weekly presentation pages, and the first page is going to have the week 1 presentation, and it breaks it down by lesson. So I like to use this when I'm planning my unit instead of this page in the TRS. See, if you look, these lessons are all out of order, right? 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 10. It's grouped by type of lesson, I guess. Yeah, and text. And here it's each lesson 1 through 15 and the components of each lesson. So this is a little bit more detailed. And again, this can be found online under weekly presentations. I'm just going to write that, weekly presentations. In your TRS, you can also find the vocab and the spelling for the week on this page at the bottom. It breaks it down by domain-specific words, academic vocabulary, the word study or the spelling words, and then the vocabulary to support your objectives. So words like, I don't know, identify, research, things like that. Okay, next is the daily breakdown. So here's where I don't follow it exactly to the T. I have, like you guys know, I have my own planner that I use. But the way that Benchmark suggests to break it down is about 3 lessons a day for grades 3 through 6. And then K through 2, you have like 4 or 5 lessons, especially if you're doing those read alouds and the shared reads in the beginning of your lessons. So, but for 3 through 6, you're going to have 3 lessons, 1 being reading, so your close reading purposes, your tasks, writing, and then some kind of word study. Now, language and grammar is embedded in your writing lessons, and then your word study lessons are your phonics and spelling lessons. I keep wanting to turn around and say, are there any questions? Like you're my actual class. Okay, and the breakdown of lesson is like this. Let me find a lesson. Let me find an example. Okay, so here we go. Model key details. First, you're mostly going to see a modeling section, except when you get to weeks 2 and weeks 3, you might not have that model section. It might go straight to the guided practice. So after modeling is that guided practice. This is honestly how I teach all my lessons. I model in the beginning, then I do the guided practice. That's kind of just what I'm used to. And then you're going to see something called collaborative conversations. So that's big in Benchmark. It's kind of big in teaching anyway. A lot of us already have our kids turn to one another, work in partners, work in pairs or teams or whatever, especially because a lot of us are trained in like Kagan strategies and things like that. But if you're not used to having your students collaborate in that way, I recommend setting up a classroom climate where your kids can turn to one another and talk. So if you have desks, create, you know, the little pod seating, or if you're like me and you have them down on the carpet, you can assign them numbers or whatever. Okay, let me see here. So that's pretty much it for the structure, how it's broken down. So I'm going to answer a couple questions before moving on first. Darby, do you have a video on how to access student test scores? Yes, I do, and it's my most recent video. It's on my YouTube channel, Markers and Minions, and it's also posted in this group. I posted about it yesterday. It's a video on not only how to access student test scores, but how to like assign tests, how to analyze results, how to go in and grade their written responses, how to create student groupings based on results, things like that. Lisa, do you find the embedded grammar is enough grammar instruction? I bring it in a lot in the mornings when I do my separate writing block. So whatever our grammar skill for the week is, I bring it in there also. I teach it in context, but then I also like to bring in like a Schoolhouse Rock video or something in addition to that. And then in their small groups, their centers each week, they're practicing their grammar using the worksheets that are online in the Spelling and Grammar Handbook. So I feel like it's enough for my third graders. You're welcome, Darby. Okay. So if there's are no questions about this structure, and I don't know, I don't know if this is new to you guys. You guys have done the training a lot more recently than I have. Our training was 2 years ago and I didn't attend it, so I don't really know what they went over in that training, that one-day training. But I hope this is helpful. Okay, let's go over to assessments and then we'll talk about small groups. So assessments, it's a combination of informal and formal. So your informal assessments, if you need something to help you with your observations in your informal assessments, there's this book called Informal Assessments. In here, and this is the first time I'm pulling this out, so thank you for making me challenge myself and realize that there's more than I even was using. Okay, so in here you're going to have observation checklists for students based on their reading level, and it's guided reading level, the A through Z, which my students aren't grouped that way. They're grouped up by Lexile, so I don't really know how helpful this would be, but you can kind of convert it. So like I know my students mostly are ideally around like level N, so I might find the checklists that have to go with level N through O, P, whatever. Okay, oral reading analysis, small group observation records. So look at this, it's like so detailed, and I'm just laughing because of what I just made. My planners are free to download, and then I just added like daily planners, and I just added a section for small group notes because I was thinking like I need something to record my notes. I'm probably still going to use this one, but this is good to know that this is here. This is going to make you be a really good teacher. Nonfiction retelling, compare, contrast, like there's everything in here, these kinds of checklists. Okay, the other thing I want to show you, another question that gets asked a lot is about writing rubrics. You can find some of your writing rubrics in this book also, in addition to your, writing handbook, writing language handbook. So here's like, for example, Kindergarten Developmental Writing Checklist. And then I think it even has, so grade 1 developmental writing, and then it's even got the developmental stages of writing with pictures. And then here we go. Opinion rubric for grade 2 for opinion writing. And then a checklist for grade 2 opinion. and then informative, explanatory rubric for grade 2, and then the checklist, and then personal narrative for grade 2. And then my bookmark is on grade 3, opinion, informational, and narrative rubrics, along with the checklists. And these are the checklists you can give the students. So I introduce my topic. Yes, no, not sure. That's cute. Goes all the way to grade 6 in here. So, informal assessments. If those weekly tests are frustrating you, those unit tests are frustrating you, maybe you can try gathering data in other areas. Okay, this part's kind of cool. I am going to show you where to find something they call the minute-to-minute observations. And it's also a place where you can find those assessed skills once again. So if you are going to the end of your week in your TRS, so here's week 1 for me. Here's another difference. I believe in K through K2, it doesn't say Unit 3, Week 1 here. It has the day, I think. Okay. The very end of week 1, before starting week 2. Let's take a look at this. This column is the minute-to-minute observation. So if you look at week 1, a lot of it says guided practice, guided practice, guided practice. And then we've got some like collaborative conversation and productive and partner stuff. Okay, and then here you go again with the assessed skills with the checks. Now, look at the end of week 2. Remember all those guided practice things that you saw. End of week 2, you see some guided practice, but then you see a little bit more collaborative conversation. Then at the end of week 3, it's like one guided practice, and it's a lot of collaborative conversations, working with your partners or teams. So it's that I do, we do, you do, that gradual release. Okay. Joan, where did you get your name, Markers and Minions? Markers because I love teaching with markers and flare pens, and Minions because when I started my store name, about 6 years ago, Minions were really big, and I used to call my students my Minions. Thank you, Lisa. You like the small group section. Darby, what's your YouTube name again? Markers and Minions. I think it's Markers and Minions, or you can search my name, Toluca Rivers. Jenny, I haven't seen that before. Can it be found online too? I'm not sure what you're referring to. Probably this or these end of the week things. Anything's found online. Like actually everything that's hard copy is found online, and there's even more online than there is hard copy. And I will do a video navigating the online component for you guys too, because a lot of people prefer the online format for their TRS. It's laid out a little bit more clear in my opinion. So I'll show you that also. Nina, right? The minute to minute. I loved that too. Oh, minute by minute assessments. I can't find that page online. I will look for it, Jenny. Okay, Vicky. Vicky says that she doesn't see this in the second grade TRS. The end of the week formative assessment opportunities. Maybe it can be found in one of your assessment books. I'll do some digging. How about that? This week, I'll see if I can borrow the TRS from second grade. Dang it, hold on. Or first grade. See if I can figure it out. Okay. I'm going to move on. Is that okay? All right, small groups. This program's big on small groups. So if you're not a small group teacher, I say just take the plunge, do it, be brave. You can accomplish so much more in your small groups. So when you're planning your unit, you can look under small group reading to get more information about what your small groups are going to look like for the unit. That's at the beginning of your TRS. And this thing. So that's what we looked at before. You flip it around. Here's your small group reading. So the way, disclaimer, this is not how I do it at all, but the way that Benchmark has you doing this is week 1, you are working with these leveled readers, and here's the levels, both in Lexile and guided reading level. Week 2, you're working on the text-dependent questions that go with the leveled readers. Those can be found on the cards. They look like this. Where's my finger? There it is. They can be found in those cards. They're literally just listed on those cards. Or you can access them online, and they kind of look like a note card. So if you're in the leveled reader that you're reading online, and you click on the green apple that says Teacher Resources, click on Text Evidence Questions, and then you'll find the list of questions, and it looks like a flashcard. So you click on the question, and it flips over, and it shows you the answer and where to find it. And a lot of you know that's not how I do my text-dependent questions, because I like my kids to be able to annotate. Then week 3 is when you can bring in these leveled Reader's Theaters. So the Reader's Theaters books are the ones that are black with the yellow theater lights. Each role within the Reader's Theaters are leveled, so you can have heterogeneous groups mixed with highs and lows and assign them a character at their level. So that's pretty cool. So that's what it has. That's the suggested pacing for small groups. Now, this is what they call small groups: independent and collaborative learning time, aka small groups. Oh, let me write this down. Let me catch up with my chart. For my visual people, independent and collaborative learning time. And here's what they suggest you have your students do. Oh, and also I read somewhere that they suggest you have 2 rotations at least a day, and like 2 15-minute rotations. I do 1 rotation a day for 30 minutes. I do, okay, let me see. How do you do your small groups? You mentioned you don't do it that way. Okay, so my small groups, I actually have a video all about how I structure my small groups, but in short, I have heterogeneous teams, so a mix of highs and lows. That way my high kids can help my low kids when I'm working with my group that I've pulled. And they travel throughout 4 centers a week. So they attend 1 center a day for 30 minutes. And my centers are modeled off of Daily 5 because that's, what was familiar to me. I have my word work center where they're working on the spelling and grammar worksheets. So it's in isolation, but they're still getting their grammar and spelling instruction in context during whole group with me. So when they're in their center, they're working on just worksheets for word work. I've got the Read to Self Center where they're reading and annotating the weekly text, and then they're answering text-dependent questions with the bookmarks. These questions are also found online under the practice tab, and then I'll say text-dependent questions, and then you'll also see the answer key on there. The way that it is online is a 1-page PDF with just a list of questions. So I typed it up to make it like for students so that they could answer questions, and those are a little bit harder. So now my students are at a point where they can do that in their Read to Self Center. And then I have the Technology Center, where they're working on some kind of Google Slides activity that I've pushed out to them, or they listen to reading on the Benchmark website. And then my fourth center is the Writing Center, where they're writing to the weekly prompt. So I analyze the prompt, I introduce it Monday, and then they write to it in the center that week. And then every day while my kids are at centers, I pull kids from each team that are homogenous. And so like on Monday I pull my really low kids from each group, and then Tuesday my medium lows, Wednesday my medium highs, Thursday my highs, Friday I pull my really lows again, so I hit them twice. And then Fridays, that fifth day, I have it just be a catch-up day. So if the kids didn't finish their work in their centers that week, they have Friday to catch up, finish their writing, finish their bookmarks, or finish their spelling and grammar. So yeah, every day I do groups, Heather. And I don't see each group each day. I wish, but that's like super teacher status. D, hi Toluca, how do you keep the mini lessons within the suggested 20-minute range? I don't even know. It took me, like I said, I've said this a few times to people, it took me a year to get my lessons mini. Because I was used to teaching, 45-minute lessons where I'm modeling and then we're practicing together and then they have some kind of independent practice. That's still how I teach math, kind of. But yeah, it took me about a year to get my lessons truly mini, and I record some of my lessons and I post them on here. So if you want some ideas, like just to hear what I'm, teaching, you can watch those videos. They're usually around 17 minutes. I have a video on key details and main idea, which is like really common. We're all of us are teaching that. And then I have my most recent video is inferencing. And then I also just posted a video on how I took that whole class lesson and I brought it into my small groups, extended it in my small groups. So I have a video on that too. Yeah, Ashley, I feel you. So the readers that they give you don't always have that much of a range. For Unit 3, I have N, O, N, M, O, H, and N. So I've got one first grade, and then all the other ones are third grade, pretty much. And that's based on guided reading level. This one, the Why Polar Bears Likes to Know, that's an 800 Lexile. So that would be like above their grade, depending on, like, going off of Lexile. But I recommend going online and pulling the readers from the other grades, since we can access all grades readers. I just did that for my partner teachers. One of her students is reading at a really low level, so we went online and we actually printed off one of the readers from first grade. So it's not ideal to like have to print every page, but you could also go to your teachers at your school site and ask to pull some of their readers if you need to. Darby, I looked on YouTube for how to access assessments. Did you find it? Someone who knows my YouTube channel, would you mind posting the link to my most recent video on how to navigate the online component for assessments, please? You're welcome, Mary. Leanne, how do you manage the rest of the students' volume when you're working with your small groups? A lot of yelling. I'm just kidding. I am okay with talking. It just can't be that loud. I have a lot of students in my class this year with IEPs and special needs, and so including deaf and hard of hearing. So my students, I just trained them really well in the beginning of the year that I'm okay with that collaborative conversation when it's necessary. And they really need to monitor that background noise, because my student who's, deaf in her left ear will pick that up. And so I just go over routines with them all the time. I know some teachers like to do the noise levels chart. So like level 0 to 5 or 10 or something like that. Okay, so for small groups, I'll come back to that in a minute. I see my pencil, I have a little bit more to talk about, but this is a good question. What tests do you use to know what level the kids are at? In my district, we do the SRI reading test, and that gives them a Lexile level. But look at this. If I can find it. Oh, hold on. Is this it? Yeah, okay. These are called the quick check assessments. These are online also. This is level O and P, so right around the middle and end of 3rd grade. This is the teacher's page. So you have the student read this passage to you, and they have a minute, and you just mark off. You do a running record, and if you're not familiar with how to do a running record, you can just YouTube it. There's like a lot of tutorials on how to do a basic running record. And then you indicate where they left off for that minute, and then you count the words per minute. And then you grade them on their phrasing and fluency, their intonation, and then afterwards there are a couple comprehension questions. So even after the minute finishes, I have my students keep reading, finish it, because I'm going to be asking them those comprehension questions. And those are found on the student pages. So this is the teacher page. The student pages are on the website where you can find these, and I'll show you in a video how to do that. And so here's like the answers to the comprehension questions, and you just give them a 1, 2, 3, or 4 based on how many they got correct. If they pass this, so if they have the correct number of words per minute, I don't remember what it should be, like, I don't know, 98 or something, and then they're passing with 3s or 4s, you can go to the next level, assess them on P. If they pass that, assess them on, what's the next letter? Q. And then keep going until it gets too hard for them. And then that would be their instructional reading level. And the last one that they passed would be their independent reading level. Thanks, Jody and Leanne. Kristen, you must be bringing your classroom home. Yep. I went to my classroom today and picked up all this stuff. There's so much. I love it. Vicki, which book is the quick checks in? That is in the Foundational Skills Assessments. Same one for K through 6. You're also going to find other assessments in here. Letter recognition, letter sounds, you know, all the way to, oh, hey, here are the student pages. So this is what the student page looks like. See, they're reading that. And then those are the comprehension questions. I should have just flipped through this a little more. Yeah, so there's a ton in here. And in my district, what they do is they are so nice. They just copy what we'll need for each trimester, and they'll give us a stack already copied. So we don't really need to bust this out too much. Jenny, we are in Michigan. We have a separate fluency quick checks book. So in this program, this curriculum varies state to state because I guess we have different standards. So I learned that because I have focus walls for each grade level on my TPT shop. And, you know, someone downloaded them from like, you know, North Dakota or something. And she says, this is not our writing skill for the week. Where did you find that? And then basically we came to the conclusion that it's different state to state. So there are going to be some variations. Your foundational skills book is much thinner. Jenny, I wonder if you'll find all the components online, if it's not all in this hard copy. Okay. So there's a lot of online resources. So I don't know if I showed you where, yeah, no, I don't think I went over this. Okay, so down here, the independent and collaborative learning time. These are what they suggest you have for your small group centers. Write independently, so writing center, I have that, check. Answer questions using text evidence, so those text-dependent questions, I do that, and I call it the Read to Self Center. Read independently, so I merge that. Reinforce word study skills and spelling, so Word Work Center. Content across disciplines, inquiry projects. I'll show you what the inquiry projects are. I wouldn't dream of putting those in a center because I love those. Those are so valuable, and I oftentimes take a 4th week off at the end of the unit to just do these projects. These are like your project-based learning projects. And then the Build, Reflect, Write page. Oh, my arm. That's the last page for the week in the student text for close reading. It's the one it has Build, Reflect, Write at the top, and it's got some kind of chart organizer, and then the essential question and the writing. So they can complete that in a center too. And a lot of the resources for these centers are found online. So the list of text-dependent questions are online under the Practice tab. The spelling and grammar worksheets are online under the Practice tab. Yeah. Also online, there is a tab called Program Support. If you click on that, find where it says Program Reference Guide. This is where you're going to find so much that you're going to love. The first thing you'll find that goes with our small groups are the small group texts for reteaching, strategies, and skills. So you'll find a list of your small readers, the leveled readers, under this tab, and what the strategies and skills are that pertain to that reader. So for example, I found that polar bear one, why polar bears like snow, and I found what lesson correlated, and it's like, I think it was the making inferences. Yeah, I think it was like making inferences or whatever. And then, so it says what lesson you can actually extend from your whole class into your small group. And then those lessons are somewhere. I mean, if you need a guide to help you teach those lessons, I think they can be found in your intervention somewhere. I'm not sure, I'll have to look on that. But yeah, it shows you what skills work well with the reader. Also, under this program support, you'll find a list of all your spelling words for all 10 units. You can find, oh, let me look. It's funny because a lot of the stuff that I see teachers creating is like already online, they just don't know where to access it. You can find a scope and sequence by grade and by unit. You can find a list of all the vocabulary words for all the grades for all the units. Same with high frequency words, spelling words, Kinder Pacing Guide, special Kinder Pacing Guide, your alignment for NGSS, and then social studies. So if I click on that, it's going to show me how every single grade and every single unit has NGSS aligned to it. So for example, Kinder Unit 3, plants and animals have needs, and then it lists the 3 standards. I should have looked at this a few weeks back instead of like writing down each NGSS standard for you guys. It's all on here. Recommended trade books, even a conversion guide, so how to figure out the letter level to the number level to the Lexile level to the AR to the grade, all that conversion. Okay, so there's a lot on there. Kristen, can we edit unit assessments? I don't think so. I don't think you can take, like online, I don't think you can edit those, and then your assessments here, are these them? No, these are my interims. Oh, my assessment book is in my classroom. But if you're using the paper assessment, you can always cover questions you don't want. I tend to give them to my students still just to see how they perform on them, and then I just don't factor that into their score. Lisa, did you model many of the build, reflect, writes before having the kiddos complete them independently? I actually don't have them complete them independently. Usually I have them complete them in groups. If I have time on Fridays, they'll complete it in a group or something. And I don't feel like I need to model them because those are really easy because it's just everything you've talked about for the week. Leanne, do you find it helpful to make the IELD graphic organizers into group activities if your class is struggling? I don't have ELs this year. My partner teacher has the group of ELs, but I would totally do that. The graphic organizers that are embedded, the IELDs, the integrated ELD, so not designated, but the integrated has moderate, light, substantial, so it's tiered. And a lot of them have these little charts that you can use or frames. That would be really fun in a group activity, or pull them in your small groups. Barb, are you looking at the program support online to find the NGSS? Yes. Yeah, so this is not just useful for small groups. It has so much in there. Like, take 20 minutes and just explore that. It's really useful. Okay, last, there's an additional resources tab. And then this is where you're going to find your inquiry-based projects. I know that, like, if you're just learning how to navigate this curriculum and find time and try to figure out how to make it work, you might not be, like, emotionally ready to take on these projects. But these are really fun. So when you are ready, here's where to find them. Under additional resources, it explains what the content across disciplines inquiry projects are and the steps, the structure. The next page, a couple pages, are going to have your options for inquiry-based projects. So see the first one, build a Native American home. That connects to social studies. Pick your adaptation, that's science, NGSS. Interview California creatures, NGSS. Is that it? Yeah, so it's 3. The only downside to these is this is all it gives you. So there's no student pages or anything. But as I do these with each unit, I kind of create student pages, and I've been throwing those up on my GPT. So if you want those additional resources, those are available there for you. But otherwise, this is really fun. And then also in the back under additional resources are the pages that might have you learn like the spelling routine, fluency routine, if you need help teaching these, if you need help following a routine. Vocabulary, like if you want to teach it that way. Maybe it's helpful if you're like a first-year teacher or you want to switch it up a little bit. The other thing is, that reminds me, these lessons are great for subs. They're so scripted and they're so detailed and outlined for you. You're an expert though, so you don't need to follow it to the T. You don't have to say exactly what the script says. Allow yourself that freedom. I was, in the beginning of the year last year, I really tried to follow it just because I wanted to learn, you know, the rationale for some of the answers. So I did get to learn that, but also like I found myself as the year went on, not following like the sample modeling or anything like that. But it's there for additional support if you need it. But don't feel like you have to, you know. Also, whenever it has a chart like this, these charts are found online, these graphic organizers, under the weekly presentations tab. And that's the first video that I ever posted to this group. So if you go to the videos tab, scroll all the way down, it'll show you how to access these student graphic organizers online. You can print them off for the unit or the week, whatever, staple them in booklets. I did that last year when I had a combo because I needed physical, like 2 separate things, like here's my 2nd grade, here's my 3rd grade. This year I'm actually not having my students fill out organizers at all. They're really small and I don't have time to recreate them. So I am a chart teacher, so anytime that there's an organizer like this, if I feel like it needs to be put up into a chart, I'll do a chart. Otherwise, for example, the key details, the main idea, there's no reason to do a chart. Just get out your highlighter and have the kids highlight, you know, in my opinion. Highlight the key details and then write in the margins what the main idea is. So I've really eliminated a lot of those charts this year. Sean, I'm really struggling with keeping the mini lesson to the recommended time. Many of my students are struggling to grasp the concepts presented. Any suggestions? So Sean, you know, the way that so many of us are used to teaching is we're going to spend that 45 minutes on a lesson, you know, upper grades anyway, on a lesson, really drilling that skill and practicing together and having them practice with a partner and then having them do it independently and mastering. So the way that this program is laid out is exposure to many skills over time, not mastering each time. So I will do a mini lesson, keeping in mind in the back of my mind that my students don't need to master it right now. They don't even have to be really like good at it yet, because they're going to see it again next week, and then again in the next unit, and then again in, you know, 2 units down the line. So that helps to remember that. It's kind of hard to let go of that desire to have every single student master, but once you are able to let go of that, your lessons will shorten. Yeah, exposure, Kristen. So I'm going to pull my assessment stuff back. Start cleaning up while I wait for questions to come in. The intervention box, this is what comes inside interventions. You're going to find lessons for phonological awareness, writing and language handbook. You'll find rubrics here. You'll find, I have a lot of bookmarked pages. You'll find mini lessons on how to explicitly teach genre writing. I know you guys missed that. Like student sheets, text to use for their writing, so they're still responding to a text. I mean, you could even pull this into small groups somehow. You don't even have to use this for writing. Like, it's just really cool stuff in here. Checklists, more checklists. So that's the writing and language handbook. Language meaning grammar, so there's like grammar lessons in here too. There's the read aloud handbook, and I personally don't use this, but this is what they recommend doing at the beginning of each day. Yeah, cute. I don't do read alouds though, that way. Phonics and word recognition. Wait, so what's the difference between these? Oh, spelling. Then there's fluency. And there's print concepts. This is small. What is this? This is for your newcomers, maybe. Otherwise, it seems really easy for 3rd grade. Erin, how do you work in small groups when you only see one group once a week? So like in my small groups, when I pool a group, we will usually spend the first week reading the leveled reader. Sometimes we finish it, sometimes we don't. Then we will move on to doing the text-dependent questions. So those are online. I've also like typed up the readers and with the text-dependent questions embedded so that my students can actually annotate the text and then answer the questions. So that's like week 2. And then like week 3, I'll apply whatever skill I've been like pulling out of my whole class. Because that's another thing I do is like if I see that key details and main idea is spiraling every single week, I sometimes decide to not teach that whole class and instead just focus on that in small groups. And so that 3rd week, I might have them like produce something for me. So for Unit 2, I had them focus on highlighting the key events, and then they wrote a summary on like this little template that I had. And meanwhile, my other small groups are working independently. How long does it take for your students to complete a weekly assessment online? So the weekly assessments are really short. They're no more than 10 questions usually. So I have my students do those first on paper and pencil. And then when we go to the computer lab, they transfer it online. And that takes them like literally 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes because they already have the answers. I like that better because they can annotate the text and it's easier to go back to the text. Something interesting, let me show you, hold on. Something interesting that I found this Friday, my students took their Unit 3 Week 1 test in class, paper, pencil, and then I had them transfer it to the computer. My students did really well. Where's my average? I don't know what the average was. It doesn't say on this one, on these reports from online, but they did really well. Then, right after, since I had nothing else planned for the computer lab on Friday, I just went in and I assigned Week 2's test. By the way, Friday when they were putting in their Week 1 answers, we were already in Week 2, so they had taken the test from the week prior that I was just like holding in my classroom. So I gave the Week 2 test, so the test on everything we just learned last week. They took it cold on the computer, not on paper first, 61% class average. And this is broken down by standard. Some of the standards from Week 1, for example, okay, 3.1, ask and answer questions to demonstrate understanding of a text. Week 1, they averaged, oh shoot, where'd it go? They averaged 64%, which is not great, but it's okay. Week 2, they averaged 43%. So I have to think that that has to do with the computer a little bit. 3.3 was 70%, and then on the computer, when they did for Week 2, it's 41%. Same standard. So sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but Joan, can the charts be copied into Google Classroom easily? I was trying to figure out how to push those charts and presentations into Google Classroom. You can save it as a PDF and then push it in that way, but then I don't really know how well your students are able to edit PDFs or type onto them. That's the only format that I was able to save it as. Kristen, what inquiry are you doing for Unit 4? Just curious. For Unit 4, my inquiry project is actually connected to writing. It's something that I've been doing for years, since like my first year teaching. We turn the classroom into like a courtroom, and we have this big debate between the three little pigs and the Mr. A Wolf. And so that project connects to my writing. So I'm not doing anything from the TRS for Unit 4 for inquiry-based projects. Do you grade much of your small work assignments, Ashley? I try to when I feel like being a good teacher, but you know how that is. I do make sure on Fridays I'll check to make sure that they've completed it. I don't exactly like read through it all, but if they haven't completed it, then haha, weekend homework. Carla, I have TK and Kinder. So Carla, first, are you using Benchmark Advanced for Kinder and then Ready to Advance for TK? We also do Academy for 45 minutes. I'm struggling to get all the shared and mentor reading in, plus writing. How do I fit in guided reading too? So the struggle is real, I think, for all grades. My ELA block is, and mind you, I don't have EL, so I don't have that separate 45 minutes. So my ELA block is 10:40 to 11:30 for whole class mini lessons, and then 11:30 to 12 for my small groups. So that's the way that I break it up. Carla, the only other advice I could offer you, because I've never taught K, and like when I step into a kinder classroom, it's like I've just entered Narnia. I have no idea like how it works. But the only other advice I can offer you is I have planning sheets included in my planning template download for Kinder and First, because they're similar. And so that might be a good place to start. And then once you get the hang of things and find your groove, you can ditch those. So that might help you. Sean, for those students who are not grasping concepts, do you pull them in small groups for additional support? Also, are your small groups only for working in the little readers? So yes, so I definitely, I extend the skills using those leveled readers. So the text for close reading books, those Lexile levels are really high. For Unit 3, they range from like 700 to 800. When like half of my class is like, you know, BR to 300, how are they going to access that text without me? So in the small groups, that's when I'm getting a text at their level, and I'm trying to work on that skill still. Are your small groups only for working in the little readers? The group that I meet with, yes. I heard there's really a shift once you hit Unit 5. A shift in what? Like more on the kids? Love how you tell us what you do without being negative about Benchmark. Kristen, the only way that I'm able to do what I do is because like I look at Benchmark and I think, wow, I truly love this program. I know I might be a minority here, but like there's so many components, and I feel like for once I don't have to, you know, pull from a million different places to supplement. Before we adopted Benchmark, we had, I don't know, like Houghton Mifflin or something. So we were kind of making our own curriculum for the last, I don't know, 5 years or whatever. So when I got this, I was like, and I use it as a resource. I don't follow it to the T, but everything that I do in my classroom can be found in here for the most part. Margaret, I would love to speak to you about combo classes. I have a 3-4 combo, and I'm using this program for the first time this year. I did see some of the skills are the same. Oh, sorry guys, bugs. I don't like bugs. Any other suggestions you may have, I would appreciate. Margaret, last year, I didn't do small groups because I, like with my first year of benchmark, I couldn't even start to think about small group instruction. I was like, really, a whole nother set of lessons? But in hindsight, I think that my year would have been a lot easier if I had done small groups. So like my schedule was sort of, and I'll keep this brief because I know we're not all doing combos, but my schedule was sort of like, I started the day, with one group independently working, and they were working on, I don't even remember now, but they could have totally been working on like, the spelling and grammar for the week prior or whatever, while I worked with my third graders. I think that's how I started the day, doing my mini lessons. And then we flip-flopped. And then what also helped was my kids a lot of them would leave for RTI, so then I would have a lot less kids in my room, and that was a little easier to manage. So I know that's a special circumstance, but if you can figure out a way to manage your schedule so that one grade is doing small groups while you're doing a whole group mini lesson that you can't merge between both grades, I think that would help a lot. Kristen, they can't annotate on the computer assessments or highlight. They have some annotation abilities on the computers. It's the same sort of tools that they have access to on the SBAC. It's just not the same as paper, so that's why I prefer to do it paper pencil. But yeah, there are some tools on there. Julie, how many centers do your kids get to a day, and how many whole group lessons do you teach a day? I teach about 3 whole group lessons a day, and my kids go to 1 center a day. Can you move so I can see the poster? Yeah, I will take a picture of this too, and I'll post it in the comments here. Kristen, love that. Put it on TPT. Oh, are you talking about the 3 little pigs? That's on there. That's been on my TPT since I was like a baby teacher. It's one of my first things I uploaded probably. Leanne, do you use the end of unit assessments online? If so, how long does it take your class to finish? I do the end of unit assessments paper pencil, and I break it up over the course of the 4th week. They're super long, so I have them do like 6 questions a day, and then by Friday they're done with it all. And then once they transfer it online, it's quick because they already have it on paper. But my students do have to do the interim assessments online without having done it on paper first. And that, we just did interim too, and that took over an hour. It was painful. Excuse me. Do I do process writing at another time? Yes. Like my genre writing that I take through the stages of writing, yes. I also teach writing in the mornings every morning through something called the Big Cheese. And then in the afternoons, I try to bring in that genre process writing. What is your opinion on reading the test to the students? I say go for it. In the beginning, Unit 1, I'm reading everything, the text, the answers, and I'm even walking them through how to find those answers, very much like me holding their hand. Unit 2, I kind of released a little bit. I read the text, I read each question and the answers, and I said, okay, you're going to need to go back to the text for this one, or hey, be careful, there's 2 answers, but I didn't like give them the answer. And then Unit 3, this was the first unit where I just gave it to them. But like I said, I have a lot of IEPs in my class and 504s, so even though I was able to just hand out the test to many of my students, I still had to pull a group of my kids to a table with me, and I read it aloud to them. And I noticed that my scores were not that different. So my low kids were still, scoring low, and my high kids were still scoring high, even though they did it completely on their own. And something that I did do still was I projected the test on the screen, and without reading anything to them, I did write a little note next to each question, reminding them of what lesson it was from that week. So like number 1, I wrote next to it, main idea details. Even though it clearly says that in the question, I think it served as a refresher, like, oh yeah, that's when we've highlighted the key details and found the main idea. Or like there was a question about the text structure that I had just taught like the day before, and next to it I wrote structure. So that reminded them to tap into that knowledge. My district doesn't suggest interim because the skills aren't SBAC aligned. The interims, though, assess like the skills you're teaching in class. So we just did interim 2, and it covered units 1, 2, and 3. Let's not talk about that. My kids didn't do that great. I'm convinced, though, that it's because it's on the computer and I couldn't read it to them. So I went back and I looked at some of them and I was like, come on, guys, you know what a fable is. Stuff like that. All right. So I'm going to give this like 1 more minute, and then I'm going to call my husband and tell him that he can come home with my daughter. I didn't know that they weren't SBAC aligned, Kristen. How are they able to tell? Sarah, heading into Unit 4 in 2nd grade, which is our research unit. I noticed the prompt changes from week to week, but it keeps the same format. In 3rd grade, did you just choose a related topic and work on that for the whole unit? I'm tempted to have them research habitats, which goes with Unit 3. The Unit 4 research prompt is a bit odd. What is the Unit 4 research prompt? Let me look at my Unit 4. For week 1, it's going to be like a compare-contrast essay, probably on the Cinderella story we're reading. Yeah. Using quotes. Write a short play. So we don't have a research prompt for Unit 4 for 3rd grade. We did have the research theme for Unit 3. It was a different prompt each week. I kept those prompts and so that I could work those into my centers, but mainly I did a unit-long research. I am doing a unit-long research animal report, and I'm weaving in a lot of those mini lessons into this huge genre report. So like analyzing the table of contents and the publisher and stuff like that. Research other stories that have characters with the same point of view. You could put the same point of view. I don't know about same, but there's a lot of stories that you can find different opposing point of views for, like Three Little Pigs, the true story of the Three Little Pigs, or like Cinderella or Snow White, and then Snow White and the Huntsman, or whatever it is. So there's stories like that that contrast the point of view, but I don't know about ones that have that same point of view. A play, Sarah, I know. I look at that too and I'm like, oh God. Anytime there's a play or like poetry, it scares me. Christy, are people having trouble with students being able to re-access online assessments if they don't finish in a setting? My students didn't finish their interim in one setting. Our computer lab block was a little less than an hour, and then I really wanted them to just be over and done with it. So we went back to my classroom, and then they took turns using the 7 Chromebooks that we have. And when they were able to log back in, it didn't ask for a code. I know sometimes it asks for a testing code, but it didn't because I had my kids pause, and so when they logged back in, they were able to just resume. All right, guys. Hope this helps. I will come back in a little bit and answer some of the comments, see if there's any other questions, and see if I can help you out. And then I will take a picture of this, post it on here as well, and any other things that you guys might need. Thank you. Have a good night.